What is up, retards? We're going to learn about the difference quotient under the context of square roots. In other words, we're going to learn how to use the difference quotient in order to solve problems that have a square root. So here on the left side, you see that I've already written out the steps for you. It's actually pretty straightforward. It's not that hard. It's just the square roots make it kind of look hard because, no one likes to deal with square roots. But other than that, as long as your algebra skills are decent, you shouldn't have too much of a problem with it. All right. So the steps are as follows. We're going to set up the equation, and then here we're going to replace all x values with x plus h. And then after that, we're going to subtract by the original function and have that entire quantity divided by h. Next, we're going to multiply by the conjugate to get rid of the square roots. And then the last step is to cross out like terms and simplify. So this is going to be a really easy example. We have here the function of x equals the quantity of the square root of x plus 1. So with this in mind, both the equation and the steps I have written here, let's get to solving this. All right, so the first step is to set up the equation. So the first part A, is to replace all x values with x plus h. So fair enough. You're following me along well? Because look, all we did was just replace this x value with x plus h. All right, now let's go to the next portion. Part B says to subtract by the original function. All right, so we're going to subtract by the original function. So all we're going to do is just bring this down here. All right. And then part C says to divide by h. Okay, now step 1 is already complete. Now the next thing we need to do is to get rid of the square roots. And in order to do that, we need to multiply by the conjugate. Okay, so if you know what the conjugate is, you should know that we're going to have x plus h plus 1, all that under the square root, plus the quantity of x plus 1 under the square root. Then we're also going to have, again, in the denominator, the quantity of x plus h plus 1 plus the square root of x plus 1. You with me so far? Okay, good. So remember in the algebraic rules is that when you have square roots multiplying, they essentially cross out. The hood crosses out, and this is a hood, right? That symbol on top of the quantity values, that's called the hood. The hood gets canceled out, and we're left with whatever is under the hood. All right. So let's go to the next step. We're going to multiply across, okay? And we're also going to multiply across with respect to the denominator. So what is the square root quantity of x plus h plus 1 times the square root quantity of x plus h plus 1? So let me write this down here just to give you a bit of a more visual approach in case you guys are a little bit rusty on multiplying square roots, right? If we have this multiplied by each other, we cancel out the square root symbol, right? And then we're just left with x plus h plus 1, right? Pause this video and then just look what we've done so far. I'll give you a few seconds. Okay. All right, awesome. Let's move on. And by the way, even though this crosses out the square root symbols, I always prefer putting whatever is under the hood inside parentheses because it just makes things much easier once you start dealing with a lot of signs, like negative signs, positive signs. It just makes it less confusing in the long run. So I highly recommend you guys doing this. So we have this part, right? And we're going to subtract it by x plus 1 times x plus 1, the square root of it. Remember, the hood cancels out. And then we're left with just the quantity of x plus 1, right? And we're going to do the same thing with the bottom. So we're going to have h times the quantity, the square root quantity of x plus h plus 1 plus the square root quantity of x plus 1. Okay. Now, after we've done that, this was step 2. Now we're going to go to step 3, which is cross out like terms and simplify. Okay. Awesome. We're almost done. So, remember how I told you how we have to have these parentheses around the terms that we're bringing down? So in here, it's not that important, but trust me, once you start going into more complicated problems where there's a lot of different like negative signs, it comes into handy, right? It's always the negative signs that throws people off in difference quotient problems. They tend to do really well in algebra, but it's the signs that really messes people up. So it's always a good habit to bring down the parentheses, right? So now, since we're going to be simplifying everything and canceling like terms, we look here, nothing's being multiplied, so we just have x plus h plus 1. Here we have negative quantity of x plus 1, so the negative is going to distribute to the x and positive 1. So we're going to have negative x plus 1. All the entire quantity over the denominator. We're just going to bring this down. Okay, good so far? All right, now start crossing out like terms. So here we have positive 1, positive 1. I made a small mistake. Okay. This is supposed to be negative 1 because this negative sign distributes to the positive 1, making it negative 1. So you see there that, I mean, even I made this mistake. Like, I mean, I've done some pretty retarded stuff doing the difference quotient before. So most likely you guys are also going to mess up too. But that shouldn't discourage you. Just keep practicing it and you'll get it down. Like again, like I said, the negative signs are always what throws people off, but if you can overcome that, you'll do just fine in 99% of difference quotient problems. But anyways, proceeding. Positive 1, negative 1. 1 minus 1, 0, so this cancels out. Then we have positive x minus x, so x minus x, 0. Bring this down. So we're left with h over h times the quantity square root of x plus h plus 1 plus square root quantity of x plus 1. And then now, the final thing we can do is, again, cross out like terms. We have h and h. And remember that when you cross them out, you should end up getting a 1 on top. And then here, you're just left with x plus h plus 1 and x plus 1. You can have it with or without parentheses right here in this specific problem. It doesn't really matter. But anyways, that is how you solve these type of square root problems. All right. So quick review. The first step is to set up the equation just like we did, right? Replace all x values with x plus h. So this part that we had here, that I highlighted, constitutes the f of x plus h. And then this part, the minus quantity square root of x plus 1, constitutes the minus f of x, right? And then the bottom here, h, well, just represented by h, right? Then the next thing we did was just multiply by the conjugates to get rid of all the square roots, right? Like we did here. Or sorry, here. Then after that, that's when we started to distribute the signs as we needed to algebraically. And we were able to start now simplifying and crossing out like terms up until we got the answer. All right, sounds good. Review this video as many times as needed. Thank you again so much for watching this video. It really helps me out when I see people commenting and liking my videos already. So if you want to support a small, unconventional, and highly unprofessional YouTuber such as myself who really wants to help you guys get better grades in biology and math, don't forget to like and subscribe. And like as always, if this video didn't make any sense to you guys whatsoever, maybe you're just a goddamn retard.